Recording in progress. Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
Hello, Yolanda.
Hello, hello, sir.
Yes, may I be assigned the interpreter status, please?
Is that Mr. Stoller?
Yes,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
A very good morning to you, honourable colleagues, honourable members of the Portfolio Committee on Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. It is the start of the fourth term. It will be a very busy fourth term, so I welcome each and everyone back. Welcome to the team of the Auditor General of South Africa. Also a warm welcome to our support team. A warm welcome to representatives of the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities. I also saw the NYDA present. And warm welcome to all South Africans that are following us on the various social media platforms. Colleagues, in front of us is the agenda for this morning. It's the opening and welcome. It's the adoption of the agenda, the apologies. We'll receive a briefing by the Auditor General of South Africa, and we will then go to discussions, and we will also have a closed session or a session at the end to deal with committee matters where we will consider our fourth term program. Can I then check if I can take any hands for anybody that would like to move for the adoption of the agenda, and a seconder? Honourable Pulwane and Honourable Peterson.
Thank you very much, Chair. Greetings to members of the Portfolio Committee, our Auditor General, our officials, everyone in the meeting. I move for the adoption of this agenda of today's meeting. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you so much, Honourable Pulwane. Can I take Honourable Peterson, please?
Greetings, Chair, and everyone on the platform. Chair, I second the adoption. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I ask Mr. Dumizweni to please deal with the apologies for us?
Thank you, Chairperson, and greetings to you, honorable members and colleagues. Chair, we have received the apologies from the following. The Minister has indicated that she's currently attending the Cabinet committees. The DM won't be able to be with us or to join us today due to her participation in the International Conference on Financing for Feminist Futures. She's been delegated by the President. Honorable Shabangu and Honorable Dr. Letlape have indicated that they will join later due to the fact that they have to nominate the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Health. And above that, there are also other pressing matters that they would like to be part of, and then later on they will join the committee. Lastly, Chair, we've received the apology from Honorable Adams. That's all for now, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Dumizweni. Colleagues, we meet this morning with the team of the Auditor General, and I don't think the Auditor General needs any introduction. The Auditor General is a Chapter 9 institution. It derives its mandate from the Constitution and is the supreme audit institution of South Africa. It also helps us by strengthening our country's democracy, by enhancing oversight and accountability and governance. So this morning, as we prepare next week to meet with both the CGE and the department to consider their annual performance plans, the AG will give us their impression after having audited the department and the CGE. But just to point out that we will not be dealing with matters related to the NYDA, as the NYDA did not submit their annual performance plan in time, but the Auditor General will speak to that. So it gives me my great pleasure then to hand over to you, team of the Auditor General, to take us through your presentation.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson, and good morning to all the honorable members in the call. My name is Tinsolo Masia, and I am with Mashudu and Tabo from the Auditor General's office, and I will be taking you through the presentation. Let me share my screen. I just want to confirm if you can see my presentation, Honorable Chairperson.
We can, ma'am.
Thank you. And then I'll just switch off my video just for the purpose of doing the presentation so that the network is not distracting us, but it's still me who's going to be taken to the presentation. Okay, thank you. So if we start with slide number 2, which has our mission, I will not repeat the mission because I think in her introduction of the purpose of today, the Honorable Chairperson has well articulated our mission statement. So I will not repeat it. What I will then just maybe add to the mission is that our strategy that we have been driving for the past 3 years is Culture Shift 2030, which is inspired by the desire to see public sector culture shifting for the better in such a way that we start to see the impact that comes from all these auditees that we audit, departments, public entities, state-owned entities. We start to see the impact they have in the lived experiences of the citizen. So that is the strategy that we have been pushing. And the honorable members will agree with me that that is a big strategy. It's not a strategy that us as Auditor General can do on our own, where we are able to push for public sector culture to shift for the positive impact on the lived experiences of the citizens. So we do acknowledge that this is something that we all have a role to play, and we all need to play our part, starting from senior management to internal auditors, to audit committee, to the accounting officers and the boards, all the way to Parliament, including the civil society organization and the Auditor General. We all have a role to play if we are to see a positive shift in the lived experiences of the citizen. So to be able to measure whether we do see nuggets of culture shift in the work that we have been doing through the audit of public sector, we have come up with a measure which we call PETI, which is Performance, Accountability, Transparency, and Institutional Integrity. So performance, we look at whether the entities are able to produce a credible performance report where they are meeting the targets they have set to achieve, of which the targets are intended to have a positive shift on the lived experiences of the citizens. With regards to accountability, we are saying that where there are instances of irregularities that would have been identified, these are recorded and disclosed appropriately in the financial records, and we are seeing consequence management taking place to ensure that there is accountability. Transparency speaks to timely submission of the financial statements and the performance reports to the auditors for us to audit, so that these can be tabled for the whole public to see what the performance has been, how the money have been spent that would have been entrusted to this portfolio. Institutional integrity speaks to the tone from the top, starting from the executive authority to the board, to the accounting officer, setting a tone that is centered around integrity and doing good. And we see this by ensuring that the environment in which these role players operate in do not tolerate non-compliances and non-adherences to the laws and regulation. And that if there are such behaviors where we end up with instances of non-compliances with laws and regularities, we see consequence management taking place, which is accountability. So in my presentation, I'll often refer to some of these principles just to articulate what we are seeing coming as incremental shifts or the lack thereof in terms of culture shift. So as I have well articulated that this is a big strategy that requires all of us, we have mapped the accountability ecosystem, role players, which is all of us, including the Auditor General, there in the central point. And we say from the Auditor General, we do our part by auditing the financial statements, by auditing whether money was being spent to procure goods and services or to buy goods and services in line with laws and regulations, and that the targets that have been set by the portfolios that we audit are being reported to and supported by sufficient document on the ground, which represent the experiences of service delivery that the citizens are having. So we do this in three folds, where we share audit insights, we influence by participating in different engagements across public sector and private sector, and also we have the role to enforce, where we raise material irregularities, where there are instances that require us to raise material irregularities. So as I continue this presentation, I will also flag the role of senior management, the role of officials, the role of internal audit or audit committee, where we found it to be instrumental or where we found it to be requiring some improvement. So as we start with our presentation, we wanted to start by reflecting on what we recommended to the portfolio of women, youth, persons with disabilities, which is the department, NYDA, and CGE. So in the previous year, I want to start by just refreshing the memory of the honorable members and the honorable chairperson to say that NYDA last year was qualified. They received a qualification because they migrated from their old system to a new system which they used to use to transact on, to make all the payments and to receive all the monies and to record all their transactions. They migrated, meaning moved away from that old system to a new system of financial reporting. And in that year, there were problems in moving information into the new financial year, which then resulted in them having material misstatements which could not be corrected, which resulted in them being qualified, related especially on payables and accruals. And then coupled with that, their CFO position was occupied by an acting candidate at the time, and we deemed this to be a crucial position that enable the preparation and finalization of quality set of financial statement. To top on that, at the time, the term of this then CEO had come to an end, and all of that, the qualification and those two key positions being vacant, made us to make a recommendation to the minister that there needed to be a fast tracking of filling of those key positions in a timely manner with suitably skilled and experienced and qualified candidates who could assist NYDA to turn around and be able to address the issues that they had in the past. We have flagged this as green because we are happy to report that the CEO and the CFO positions of NYDA have now been filled, which is good. So green means implemented, so we have flagged that first recommendation as green. The second recommendation related to quality or quarterly feedback that the portfolio committee as well as the executive authority needed to receive related to the implementation of action plans that were intended to address the previous findings and the repeat findings or instances that would have resulted in NYDA to regress in the previous year. But this was intended for the whole portfolio. And then in our assessment, we are saying that this is in progress. So we note that action plans were drafted and even part of filling the key positions is part of the action plans, but also the tracking of the actions that were put to deal with the repeat findings. We are saying that that is in action. But you will see that as I continue to share the audit outcomes, there's repeat issues on performance information, there's recurring issues on irregular expenditure, and also on consequence management. So because of that, we are saying that this is not yet fully implemented, and we just want to elevate it to the portfolio committee. The last one was a recommendation which we put to the minister to influence the portfolio through her executive review and her approval processes of going through the planning documents, being the annual performance plans of the portfolio, to ensure that indicators are crafted to be able to elevate positive impact in the lived experiences of women, youth, and persons with disabilities. So we said that there is a role for this portfolio to be more impactful and to address the noise and the current lived experiences of women, youth, and persons with disabilities. And this can be done by being intentional about the type of targets that find expression in the annual performance plans, so that when the portfolio reflect on the achievement, they can reflect on things they are doing to address the current lived experiences of women, youth, and persons with disabilities. We're saying this is in progress. While we have seen that some of the indicators and targets that have been included are speaking to the heart of the mandate of the portfolio and attempting to deal directly with the current lived realities of women, youth, and persons with disabilities, we also noted that the portfolio is a bit behind in achieving some of those targets. So it will be important that they are included and they are also achieved, so that we can start to assess the impact they have in dealing with the lived realities of women, youth, and persons with disabilities. So for that, we also flagged this recommendation to be in progress, and we will continue to reflect on it. Now, if we move to the audit outcomes, I will start by just recapping, because this is not a lot of entities that we cover in this portfolio. We cover 3 audits, the first one being the department, and then the CGE, and then there's NYDA. So in 2023-24, the department received a clean audit where they were able to produce financial statements which did not have errors, material errors. They were able to produce a credible performance report, which was backed or supported by supporting evidence that spoke to the achievements that were reflected accurately in the report. And they were able to demonstrate that in their spending of the money that they received from the allocation of their vote, they complied with all the laws and regulations, which is great. So they were able to do the basics and get a clean audit. CGE had issues on their financial statements, which they could correct. They had issues on their performance report, which they could correct, but there were instances of non-compliances which were identified, which resulted in them getting an unqualified with findings. Then the material findings become material adjustments that had to be done, and not adhering to some laws and regulations, such as preventing irregular expenditure. But I will deal specifically to the issues as I continue. So that was the outcome in the previous year. NYDA was qualified, as I've already indicated, that they moved from a system, an old system, to a new system, and there were errors that were picked in migrating the information and making sure that the information is accurately reflected as it used to be in the old system, and that resulted in them being qualified in the previous year. Now, when we start with NYDA, because of that problem of the old system and the new system causing a qualification, The agency then decided that they were going to revert back to their old system. And that process of reverting back to the old process system and preparing financial statements to be a challenge in that it took a little bit longer for the agency to be ready to prepare financial statements and the annual performance report and submit this on the 31st of May, which is usually the legislated timeline. So on the 31st of May, we did not receive the financial statement for NYDA. We only received the financial statement in August, and therefore the audit of NYDA is outstanding. It is not yet finalized. We are still busy with it. So this means beyond this slide, I will not be reflecting on NYDA because we need to wait until the audit is finalized, and then we can come back from an invite that we will get from the portfolio committee to brief the portfolio committee on the audit outcomes of 2024-25 insofar as it relates to NYDA. With regards to CGE, the audit outcome for CGE is stagnant. Even in the current year, they have received unqualified with findings. So it is flagged as yellow to say you are almost there, because at the end of the audit, at least we can tick that your financial statements are of quality. But there's still issues of non-compliance. There's still issues on the annual performance report that you needed to address, and that will need to be addressed going forward, even though some you were able to clear. And that is the reason why the commission is sitting with unqualified with findings. We congratulate the department for being able to sustain a clean audit for the second time this year. We are saying that is proving that they got the basics right. It is now for the department to ensure that they do more to be impactful. They focus more in influencing other role players that are crucial in also steering a positive lived experience to women, youth, and persons with disabilities. So we'll delve deeper on that as we continue with the presentation. Now, when we come to slide 6, here we reflect on the quality and the credibility of the financial statements that we received from both the department and from CGE. So we start with this graph, which has green and red. Green means the set of financial statements that we received were of quality because they did not have material errors, which we picked up through the audit, which needed to be adjusted for us to finally say the financial statements are now correct and they don't have material issues with them. So when we look at that criteria, the set of financial statements that were submitted by the department were of quality. That is why it is sitting as green here. And even post the audit, we did not identify any material issues on their financial statement. This is good news. We want to commend the department and say they must continue on that. With regards to CGE, on their set of financial statements, we identified material findings on their disclosure for commitments. We raised those issues and they were fortunate enough to be able to do the relevant corrections that needed to be made. And then the final set that was audited was then found to be of quality. Now, the difference between the department and CGE is that when you look at CGE, had it not been for the audit, it would mean that this set of the financial statements that were prepared would not have been credible. So it had to take the audit effort to get them to a credible state. So this is where we then start to emphasize to say the action plans that are put to deal with reviews of financial statement, recording of financial statement needs to be enhanced, and perhaps the assurance that is provided by internal audit as well and senior management as reflected in the accountability ecosystem and the audit committee will need to be intensified so that those reviews, even before the Auditor General comes into audit, are able to pick up material errors. And it is not the Auditor General that is then picking up that there were errors. So in a nutshell, 2 controls that we picked up which need improvement is daily and monthly controls that look at recording all the transactions that are happening on a daily basis, reconciling them on a monthly basis, and making sure that there is transparency and there is compliance, and that everything is accounted for in line with the accounting standards. And then the other third one that is following controls that we are just worried about relate to proper record keeping, because it is the one that has also contributed to the finding that we identified. And then lastly, we want to say, even though on the department, we did not identify material issues on their financial statements, we did identify immaterial errors, which will need to be addressed by strengthening these controls, the review and guidance processes in the finance unit, so that you don't sit with a situation where one instance that in 1 year would have been immaterial show up in the following year and all of a sudden it is material, and then it results in a regression on the audit outcome. When we move to the performance reports that we received, this graph is communicating that both the performance report from the department and from CGE had material issues in some of the targets that were reported, which we audited. Those material issues had been to be raised as findings, and then fortunately, both the department and CGE were able to correct them. But such process of the Auditor General being the one that is picking up these errors, that is picking up that the achievements that are reported are not sufficiently equating to the supporting underlying documents, or we don't get to the same numbers when we follow the underlying supporting documents, can be framed as relying on the external audit process to pick up these issues and make sure that we end up having a credible performance report. So we want to elevate that there were material issues which will need to be addressed from a control point of view, from a review point of view, from the assurance that is provided by internal auditors and audit committee to interrogate this document even before they are submitted for the audit, so that issues are identified through the institutional disciplines of keeping records on a monthly, on a daily basis, and reconciling them and reviewing them on a monthly and quarterly basis. It will make it easier come year end to prepare credible performance report if those daily disciplines are there. So some of the material findings that we raised really related to the reported achievements not being aligned with the supporting documents for both the department and for both CGE, and we just give examples and explanation in there. This one, slide 8, is a very important slide. This is a slide where we say, given the context of the audit outcomes of the 2 entities, where the department received a clean audit, where CGE did not receive a clean audit, but is very close to really getting the basics right. How does it translate to the achievement of key targets, or all the targets that they've set to achieve, so that there is a positive impact on the lived experiences of the citizen? So in this graph, we are assessing whether or not all the targets that the department and the commission have put for themselves, if they were able to achieve those or not. And we are saying, let us read this graph with context of the audit outcome, because it is important. So when we look at the department, we can see here that the department was only able to achieve 77% of their target. There's 23% of the targets that they had set for themselves, which they did not achieve. So it is good that they got a clean audit. That is saying they have the basic right. But we are challenging the department to then shift the gears by making sure that that clean audit is backed up by them being able to achieve all the targets that they set to achieve. Why is this? So that we can attach the impact of the clean audit. That is the reason why we are then challenging the department to say, go a step further, achieve the targets that you have set for yourself. Why is this important? Now, if you look at some of the key targets that we are flagging here, which were not achieved, the first one being progress reports produced on implementation of women, youth, persons with disabilities, socioeconomic empowerment index. This is supposed to measure the progress that is being made on the implementation of socioeconomic empowerment initiatives, which talks to the initiatives that ought to empower women, youth, and persons with disability. If the department was not able to achieve this, it means we don't know the full extent of how far the country is in implementing socioeconomic empowerment initiatives that should address and empower this group. And that is central to the mandate of the department. Another one that I can give is the South African Youth Development Bill that was supposed to be processed and tabled in cabinet. This was not achieved. And you would agree with me, Honorable Chairperson and the honorable members, that this Youth Development Bill is supposed to be one of the key tools that can accelerate initiatives to assist the vulnerable youth that do not have jobs, that do not still have access to the economy, and the list go on. But this is one of the key indicators that can enable this department to really see the impact that we want to see in shifting the current lived realities of the youth. So if it is not achieved, it is a concern. When you look at CGE as well, one of the indicators that was not, or target that was not achieved, relate to percentage of compliance with the CGE's handling of complaints that they receive related to gender equality. So if this is not achieved, it is so central to the mandate of CGE. And if it is not achieved, then you ask yourself, then how do we get to a point where we can confidently say we can see the impact of the mandate and the activities that are happening in the commission? So it might be only 4%, but if it's so central to the mandate, we all should be worried about it, and we should urge the CGE to put all the resources they can to try and turn this around and drive some of these key indicators to be achieved. I have already spoken to the impact, which is us not then seeing a shift in the mandate of this portfolio towards a positive improvement in the lived experiences of women, youth, and persons with disabilities if these targets are not being achieved. Now, on slide 9, we then reflect on irregular expenditure. The graphic we have here is showing that last year we had irregular expenditure of 4 million. This year we have irregular expenditure of 3 million. What I want to also share is that this 4 million irregular expenditure from 2023-24 was all for CGE. In the current year, this 3 million irregular expenditure is all for CGE. And it relates to supply chain processes which were not followed in the appointment of legal panel. Now, if you go back to the assessment of culture shift that we spoke about, which include performance, accountability, transparency, institutional integrity. If the SCM process that was supposed to be followed is not followed, it then takes away the opportunity for the Commission to say boldly that the institutional integrity of the Commission is watertight. It is that one that sets a tone to say, we follow prescripts, we follow laws and regulations. That's what it says. But also it communicates that this takes away the opportunity for all people who would have wanted to also participate in providing services to the Commission if the appointment of the panel was not transparent, was not fair, was not competitive, because that is what the SAM processes are trying to do. The other one, it related to a bid of 600,000, which was not advertised on the website as it is required by National Treasury regulation. Again, it takes away transparency, it takes away accessibility, it takes away competitiveness if not everybody knows that there is a bid that has been advertised that they can participate in. That is the impact of this insofar as culture shift is concerned. So we should strive to assist the Commission to get to a point where it adheres to the laws and regulations so that it can promote accountability, so that it can demonstrate that it stands for that institutional integrity, and it can promote transparency. And therefore, this results in irregular expenditure being incurred. But this picture on the graphic, Honorable Chairperson, is not complete. Our job, according to National Treasury, there's a framework for irregular expenditure, which says at the time of completion of the audit, if there are other instances of irregular expenditure that us as the Auditor General have identified and communicated to management, that there's also these other instances which supply chain management processes have not been followed, but management are of a different view. They can escalate those irregular expenditure to National Treasury, and then what the department or CGE need to do is to disclose such instances as irregular expenditure under assessment. So we are saying the honorable members should always read this picture together with other irregular expenditure instances which may be disclosed or which are disclosed under assessment. So when we looked at the annual report from a department, there was one instance of a contract which, based on how it was evaluated, it deviated from the initial terms of reference and specification which had indicated what was going to be considered in evaluating the bidders. And we found that process to have not been in line with the supply chain processes. However, senior management had a different view and escalated this process to National Treasury. So we are saying it may look like it's only CGE that has irregular expenditure alone, but the honorable members must also take into account that there's a transaction or a contract to the value of 900,000 that is irregular expenditure under assessment. When we looked at CGE, apart from the 3 million in the current year, there were no other instances of irregular expenditure that is under assessment, which can potentially increase this graphic. So we just wanted to bring that to the attention of the members. Now, when we move to the next slide, which is slide 10, this is consequence management. Looking at whether or not both the department and CGE have dealt with irregular expenditure that is coming from the previous years. The graphic is showing us that the closing balance of irregular expenditure coming from the past in 2023-24 was sitting at 60.1 million. In the current year, which we audited, the closing balance of irregular expenditure was sitting at 63.2. Ideally, where irregular expenditure is being dealt with as required by PFMA, we need to see this number going down. And how do we get this number to go down? We get it to go down if irregular expenditure has been investigated, if it has been determined what caused the irregular expenditure, if people who needed to be held accountable have been held accountable, if irregular expenditure that needed to be condoned have been condoned at the appropriate level, and if irregular expenditure that needed to be recovered from the people who caused it have been recovered, or if it has been written off because according to the investigation, it was found that it needed to be written off, depending on how it was caused. So the minute you see this graph not going down, it means those principles that are supposed to be followed as articulated in the PFMA and the National Treasury regulations and the framework, then it means irregular expenditure is not being dealt with. And that is the essence of the story that we are communicating here, that this all irregular, which is broken down with a balance that came from CGE of 17.8 million in the previous year and 42.3 million for women coming from the previous year, all of this has not been fully dealt with. So when we break it down, the 42.3 from the department, we have noted that it has been investigated. However, there is a stagnant in ensuring that that irregular expenditure is being condoned or written off. That process has not taken place. What we then noted is that the department has written to National Treasury in attempt to get this irregular expenditure condoned. And there was a response from National Treasury which indicated that the accounting officer, given the nature of these instances that resulted in irregular expenditure, can condone, has the powers to condone the irregular expenditure. However, the concern is that this is still not dealt with. It's still sitting as a closing balance, as you can see. With regards to CGE, there was 5 million, which constitute of 11 instances of non-compliance, which resulted in irregular expenditure. We are seeing a slow movement in condoning this irregular expenditure. So this is the part, the 5 million is the part that has been investigated. However, we are not seeing it being either written off or condoned or recovered, because the commission is saying that they have written to National Treasury and they are waiting a response on how to deal with it. But the bulk of irregular expenditure that we are also worried about from the CGE is the 12.8 million, which relates to 35 instances which have not yet been investigated. And the reason that we obtained from the commission is that the commission is relying on internal audit unit to conduct investigations, and it takes on average 2 years to finalize an investigation. So you can just look at the number of instances if it's going to take 2 years to investigate all 35 instances, that it's going to take a while before we see this irregular expenditure being cleaned up. And this is a concern. So our concern is that perhaps there should be a real look at how the commission is capacitated and the resources it is relying on, which is that of internal audit. Is that the appropriate unit that should be investigating instances of irregular expenditure? So this problem needs to be relooked at. The status quo of just relying on internal audit does not seem to be addressing the issue, and we may sit with irregular expenditure for a very long time if that status quo will continue. And then this one relates to fruitless and wasteful expenditure. It's the same thing that has not been dealt with. So you can see that all of it has not been dealt with. And we are urging both the department and CGE to fast track these instances of fruitless and wasteful expenditure which have not been dealt with. Because this then talks to the petty culture that we spoke about, of seeing culture that is shifting towards positive shift on the lived experiences of the citizens. So it matters for both the department and CGE to be seen to be ensuring that there's consequence management by addressing fruitless and wasteful expenditure, by recovering all the monies that should be recovered, and writing off where they need to write off all the monies that should be recovered. But the process of investigating and accelerating these issues need to be taken very seriously. And then this then brings us to slide 12, which is what we are then recommending. So the first recommendation we have put to the department and the commission is that the institutional disciplines which are necessary to enable daily reviews and monitorings of all transactions, we found this to be lacking. So we found this not to have been consistently implemented by senior management. So that is the root cause. And in relation to that, we are saying that the accounting officer and the authority must develop an action plan that will restore the institutional disciplines through monthly, quarterly reviews and reporting, which will then also empower accountability to take place, whether at the senior management level or at the lower level staff, by ensuring that things are done, corrections are made, errors are picked up timeously. The second root cause is the role of internal audit, particularly in relation to CGE, which we are finding that perhaps the role of internal audit, which is supposed to enable quality submission of financial statement and credible reporting on performance information, was not effective due to competing priorities. As you can see that there is a number of instances that are awaiting internal audit to investigate from a consequence management, from fruitless and wasteful expenditure and irregular expenditure. However, they have a responsibility which they are expected to do, which is the interim review of the financial statements and credibility of performance report. And now if the resources they have are being spent doing investigation, that will explain the reason why we picked up the errors that we picked up, which could not have been corrected before the audit commenced. So on that note, we are recommending to the audit committee, specifically relating to CGE, to review the terms of reference of the internal audit unit and to see how this can be realigned to the roles and responsibilities so that it can go back to its initial purpose of strengthening the operating effectiveness of internal controls. They can still do investigations, but if this core role and responsibility of strengthening effective operation of internal controls is left behind, we will continue to see errors in the financial statements, we'll continue to see errors in the performance report. And then lastly, it is the slow progress by the accounting officer and authority to fast track irregular and fruitless and wasteful expenditure consequence management, as you would have seen with the previous 3 slides that I presented. And for that, we have recommended to the executive authority, and we are also putting this recommendation to the portfolio committee from the side of CGE to say, monitor the progress that is being made in investigating, condoning, recovering, writing off any irregular expenditure and fruitless and wasteful expenditure that has been incurred. But more than anything, it will be important to ensure that there are institutional disciplines and capabilities to prevent irregular expenditure from happening. So, for example, the supply chain unit that should protect these entities from continuing to incur irregular expenditure and fruitless, especially from the CGE side of things. With that said, Honorable Chairperson, that brings me to the end of the presentation. I will pause here and revert back to you.
Thank you very much to the Auditor General of South Africa. Thank you for that presentation. I did greet the delegation from the NYDA, but I neglected to also greet the CEO of the CGE You are welcome, sir, and also greetings to Dr. Tembe. Before I hand over to honorable members, I think for me, the first thing that I would like to say is I think it is of grave concern that we are confronted with a situation where the NYDA was not able to submit its financial statements on time, even though we did hear you saying that they've switched from an old system to a new system and now back to an old system. It raises questions around financial implications because they spend money on a new system. But more than that, it points to me that there's something wrong at the NYDA, but we will await your audit in that regard. My second comment would be with regards to consequence management at the CGE, and we really need to zoom into solutions in this regard, because it simply cannot be that it will take 2 years to finalize 35 investigations and now there's more irregular expenditure. It also points to something seriously wrong within the CGE's internal control environment that we would need to zoom in on. And I think also then with regards to issues that you have flagged, we as a portfolio committee have been constantly saying that we are unable to see the change in the lived realities of South Africans that we are meant to serve, women, youth, and persons with disabilities. In other words, we do see our department spending their money and the CGE, but then we do not see the real tangible impact on our communities. And it's something that you are raising. And we also do share your concerns with regards to the missed targets in terms of legislation that is not coming before Parliament, in particular the youth bill that you have flagged, as well as the disability rights bill. And it's something that we will, of course, continue to have discussions with the department about, because we do want to expedite these bills coming before Parliament. But honourable members, it's now your opportunity to ask questions. I will also ask questions at the end if there's anything to add. I see one hand for now, but I will take more hands. Okay. Thank you, honourable members. I do see your hands. We will start with the Honourable Mabel, followed by the Honourable Polwani, followed by the Honourable Tsotetsi, followed by the Honourable Chauke Adonis, and followed by the Honourable Kanile. In that order, please. Over to you, Mama Mabel.
Good morning, honourable members. Good morning, honourable chair. Honourable chair, I'll go just straight to the questions. My first question on performance credibility: why did the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disability and CGE require a post-audit corrections to performance report again this year? And what dated named action plan will ensure that in-year performance reporting is reliable from Q1 2025 to 2026? And my second question, on unarchived core targets, by what date will the Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities Socio-Economic Empowerment Index progress report? The SANDF-led NYS and the South African Youth Development Bill be delivered to Cabinet with milestone and owners? My third question on IEFWE backlogs. The Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disability is the top contributor to IE and FWE closing balance of 42.3 million IE and 11.8 million FWE. Why? What discoveries have been effected to date? Which officials, contractors have been sanctioned, and why are condonements still pending? Fourth question on internal controls. What changes to daily monthly control, discipline, and senior management reviews will prevent repeat misstatement and omissions in 2025-26? Please provide dates and responsible officials. My fifth question on internal audit mandate. When will the audit committee rescore internal audit away from investigation into preventative control testing? And how will investigation capacity will source to avoid audit paralysis? My sixth question on SM non-compliance and IE. What disciplinary outcomes followed the 2.4 million legal panel appointment without 3 codes and the 0.618 million non-advertised bid? Provide recovery status and names and responsible officials. 7, my question 7, it's complaints handling integrity. It's on complaint handling integrity. How will CGE fix provincial duplication and file integrity like Mpumalanga and Western Cape and achieve a verified, accurate compliance percentage by Q2 of 2025 and 26? The 8th question, FWE, on FWE prescription risk. With 7.3 million FWE and investigations lagging 2 years due to vacancies, when will cases be finalized and recoveries concluded and avoid prescriptions? Question 9. Late AFS and data integrity. On that, what governance failure led to the submission and systematic except what is this? Okay.
Honorable Michael, wrapping up, please.
No, yes, I'm wrapping up. Yes, on question 9, as I was on question 9, now my failed. Yes. Question 9, late AFS and data integrity. What governance failure led to the submission and system reactivation, rework, and how will NYDA register? NYNDA register. Okay. And how will NYDA ring-fence financial data integrity ahead of the 2025 and 2026 audit cycle? The last question, Chair, on youth outcomes, given the portfolio's failure to shift the key youth economic participation indicator, what changes in NYDA program design and measurement will demonstrate measurable livelihood gains by Q4 2025 to 2026? I thank you. I submit.
Thank you, Mklonishwa. Honorable Polwane.
Thanks very much, Chair. Chair, let me welcome the presentation from AG. Chair, this is the well-informed presentation with a nice recommendation. And thanks AG to do the good work by pick up some of the irregular expenditure. But my worry is that are we tracking our recommendation or the department come to us and present, give us the presentation and come in the next meeting and present again? Because when you go to the causes of irregular expenditure, the supply chain management processes not follow on the appointment of legal panel, the 3 quotation not obtained, our ban. Even myself, I'm a politician. But this thing of 3 quotation, which is a daily bread, we know it, all of us. It means the consequence management is not implemented. If it can be implemented, I think Utlabona, they will follow the SCM processes. That's my comment, Chair. On the non-achievement target, the issue of women, people with disability is always undermined, especially RENA as government. The private sector, they are trying. If you can go to some of the municipality, you will find that the whole municipality, they don't have the disability person. And when you come to the tender, especially the big one, it's only men that they are benefiting. I think it needs a thorough monitoring this one. Even as chair, when we are doing the oversight, we must sit on it. When we can sit on it, I think we can maybe they will comply. We cannot sit here and listen to the presentation that speak about the non-compliance after so many years, Chair. I've got only this comment up to so far, Chair, for the presentation. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Honorable Mulwani. Honorable Tsotetsi, it's your opportunity.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good morning to the Office of the AG and all participants in the meeting. I think, Chair, I don't have many issues. I would like to start by really emphasizing our condemnation of the practice of not submitting the AFS by the NYTA. I don't think at this point we really have to place much focus on reasons thereof. We just need to put it on record that this is an unacceptable practice, and really it is important that they improve moving forward. The second thing, Chair, is that in the layman's term.
Hello. You're right.
Honorable
Sorry.
Mabel, please mute yourself.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry, Honorable Tsotetsi.
Thank you, Chair. So, in the layman's term, am I correct to think of the material misstatement as a practice of delivering reports that are misleading in terms of their content? Basically, that are falsifying information and that get later to be corrected. Because in the layman's term, I look at this statement as such. Can the AG office confirm, if my understanding is correct, that this means that information which they would have received on areas which they pick up as material misstatement relate to information which was misleading? The last issue which I would want to raise is often the department characterizes itself as the non-service delivery department. Now, we note that in as far as it relates to their department, there are issues of service delivery that are being cited by the AG. Is there any methodology of determining the impact which these particular programs would have? I know they relate to some of the workshops that they would do and so forth. Is there any methodology of determining the impact which these service delivery programs conducted by the department has? And I would not want to repeat things that have been raised by Honorable Polwane, but I do agree with some of them. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Honorable Tsotetsi. Honorable Chauke Adonis.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and greeting to yourself and honorable members and those who have joined us from the Auditor General's office and our support team as well. Chairperson, I think to a certain extent I'm greatly covered by my previous speakers in terms of the questions that would arise from this particular report. And I think one of the things that we need to re-emphasize is on consequence management. And perhaps one who would be appropriate to respond to this would be the Ministry of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities in terms of what is put in place for consequence management for its agencies and entities that fall under the department, such as your CGE and NYDA. And now we're undertaking the process of establishing the GBVF Council so that we do not have a repeat offenses or offenders coming from one department. But also one raises as a concern where there is under expenditure or expenditure that then takes place. Is this due to lack of planning or reprioritizing the focus areas? What has led to this in terms of the audit finding as well? And I think that's quite critical because what one would then observe is that the majority of the resources that are allocated through the department are allocated to logistical and administration elements, and also integrated into that would then be travel, but also meaningless programs. So one would want to find out how can we make a recommendation through this audit report as well in terms of being able to measure the impact and viability of the programs that are presented through the department and also the entities, APP and strategy plans, and whether they are achievable, attainable, and how do they exactly seek to I'm going to say seek to resource capacitate or capacitate them with the resources according to the budget that is allocated. For example, we know that majority of the department's budget goes to NYDA. Now, in that budget allocation being, over 70% going to NYDA, how is the department ensuring that through the NYDA, they are able to also meet their constitutional mandate through young women, through young persons with disabilities, and obviously young able-bodied persons through the NYDA, which would ultimately assist the department reaching its targets? Is there a possible way in which the Auditor General, in terms of from the report, are able to interlink all of those institutions when doing the audit report for the department as to whether they are able to meet their targets with interlinked or parallel programs that are run by entities that belong or fall under the department? I'm also greatly concerned in terms of the NYDA, also taking into consideration that we have migrated into the incoming or the new board that has come in, and how they are then expected to account for some of the irregular expenses or expenditure from the previous board, but also what has the recommendation been, or what were the recommendations coming from the Auditor General in terms of what can be mitigated and put in place in order for us to not have repeat offences. But ultimately, I think, Chairperson, what is most important here is how can we put something in place through the department, the portfolio committee, that speaks to consequence management and accountability. Because I think we cannot continue to have departments and institutions and entities that are overspending or under spending when there's such a great need to service the constituency in which are assigned to this particular department and the institutions they fall under. I think for now, Chairperson, I am satisfied with the report, and my questions other questions have been raised by other honourable members. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honourable Chalke Adonis. Over to you, Honourable Kanile.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. Greetings to you, to colleagues and everyone on the platform. Honourable Chair, I think I have also been largely covered by my colleagues that have spoken before myself. However, I think I only have a few questions. I also welcome the presentation by the AG. And during the presentation that is made here by the Auditor General, it also came to light that there was an instance where the CGE wrote to the National Treasury requesting that the National Treasury condone some of the fruitless and irregular expenditures. And the comment thereof that was made by the National Treasury was that the accounting officer has the powers to condone those irregular expenses. But to date, it came to our attention that has not been done. Can we please be furnished the reasons as to why has this not been done to date? Number two, it also came to light that some investigations, they take more than 2 years, and others reach a stagnant because there isn't any recommendations in terms of action that needs to be taken going forward. What could be the reason for the stagnation, and is it possible maybe for AG to guide us in terms of what could be other possible interventions that can be put in place so that we fast track these investigations and get to have proper recommendations? Chair, I also would like to reiterate what have been said by my colleagues in terms of CGE failing to meet its target, more especially on the complaints that they have received on issues of gender equality. One cannot emphasize this issue. It's an issue that we have always been inquiring, asking about, trying to find out why these targets are not being met. And majority of the public or government departments, they are not meeting the targets. However, it's concerning also when one observes or receives a representation that indicates that even CGE themselves, they are not meeting targets in addressing those complaints. At this rate, do we really think we are going to be in a position as this portfolio to ensure that when we conduct our monitoring and evaluation, that all other departments, they meet their 7% targets as it has been recently increased? I think the other question that I may have, I'm really not sure if the AG will have information on this. I'm interested in knowing how much did the NYDA pay for the new system that they migrated to before they decided to migrate back to the old system? Because it also may seem like we're also going to have another fruitless and irregular expenditure, seeing that there is a system that was maybe sourced and at the end of the day, it has now been being abandoned. But I'm really not sure if the AG is able to provide those details. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you so much, Honourable Kanile. I think I want to re-emphasize what the Honourable Tsotetsi had said. I think the NYDA would really need to get its house in order, and this portfolio committee is concerned about the state of affairs with the NYDA. I also want to ask, because he did mention this, but it is worrying when the AG says to us, we received financial statements from both the department and the CGE that were not credible. And so what were the misstatements, the material misstatements in those financial statements that you received? AG's office, if you can just give us clarity. Then looking at the recommendations, I think with regard to the consequence management or the failure to implement consequence management at the CGE, my question really is, what can we do as a portfolio committee to help the CGE? In other words, my reading from you is that the internal audit is not capacitated to deal with internal controls and consequence management. Is that a correct assessment, AG's office? I want to zoom in on the issue of the performance of commissioners. In previous years, you had dealt with issues around commissioners around the COVID period, part-time commissioners, in that there were issues around their payment and timesheets. But again, now this portfolio committee will be embarking on a process to appoint new commissioners, or we'll be recommending the appointment of new commissioners to the president to serve on the CGE. Would you be able to, considering that you get the timesheets, would you be able to help us if we had to write to you, AG? Would you be able to help us with an audit on the performance of the CGE commissioners? Because we've had some concerns in that regard, in that we are not receiving work reports. And CGE commissioners are collectively and individually accountable to Parliament. Then with regards to the disagreement between the department and the AG about a 900,000, which has now been referred to the National Treasury, what does this contract, I heard it as a contract, what does it relate to? Was it for a service provider or a consultant? If we can just get more information in that regard. And then my final question really is about this issue which has been flagged about the lived realities or experiences of people on the ground. Now, there's one mention here that there was a number of capacity building and training provided to the GBVF rapid response teams, and one of the targets which was achieved in the current year was not reported in the performance report due to the portfolio of evidence not being aligned with the report. So my question really then is, if we talk about us wanting to see this department move to have a real impact, this impact that we want to see in communities, if they are unable to provide that portfolio of evidence, it then means to me that in essence, we again cannot measure, or they are unable to measure their own impact if they're unable to provide that portfolio of evidence. So one of our concerns as a portfolio committee have been that we host workshops, we host talk shops, interventions, but we cannot measure the impact. So considering then that they were not able to give you that information, are we then saying that we really cannot measure the impact of the interventions of this department at any level? I hope my question is clearly understood. Thank you very much. Then over to you, Office of the AG. You can then start with your responses, please.
Chairperson, sorry for interjection.
Yes, Honorable Chauke Adonis.
Yes, apologies. I know you were summarizing. Perhaps when the AG also responds, I just wanted to find out, in terms of the evaluation that takes place through the Auditor General and the reporting, how do they also look at other departments' performance, especially with programs that are allocated or assigned to the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, one of them being the Sanitary Dignity program, and we do know that this spreads across various departments, and also, you know, the gender responsive budgeting, etc., and GBV programs that go directly from Treasury to the departments or from Treasury directly to provinces. How are we able to evaluate that, and is that already integrated in the audit report in terms of the performance of the department? Thank you very much.
Okay, before we hand over to the AG, I just wanted to ask as well, with regards to the CARA funds and the EU funds, the donor funds that our department receives, do you look at that and to see whether it's spent in a manner that is proper and effective, or is it not something that you look at? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson, the honorable members. We appreciate the energy of the reflections and all the questions that we have received on the presentation. I will try and respond to some of the questions, and then I'll hand over to my team, which is Mashudu. I hope Mashudu is still in the call. Switch on your video, please. And Tabo, who will also assist me with some of the questions. So starting with the opening reflection by the chairperson on your concerns on NYDA, on the non-submissions and the CGE taking 2 years to investigate issues, and the link that we all want to see between the achievement of targets and the lived experiences of the citizens. We register that, and yeah, we appreciate that we are aligned in terms of what we are worried about and what you are worried about. Then Honorable Mabel came in and asked 10 questions, and I wrote all of them down. But all of them, Honorable Chairperson, if you allow me, all of them will be best suited being responded to by the department and CGA, because they are asking what the department and CGE are doing or have started doing, or how are they going to then put action plans with timelines to be able to address these issues. So if the department is on call and CGE, perhaps they will come in and respond to the 10 questions. And then when we move to Honorable Pulwane, I hope I'm also pronouncing her surname correctly. It was mainly the comment to welcome the presentation and to put it to the committee on how the committee can track the recommendations that we have put in place. I think last year we also put a recommendation to say perhaps the committee can ask for quarterly feedback on actions that are being taken to address the audit findings that we have raised to the department and the entities. And perhaps that can be the best way to track whether these recommendations that we have put to the department and CGE are being implemented. And then moving to Honorable Sotetsi, wanted to get clarity on whether you are understanding the issue of material misstatement correctly by saying it means that then the department and CGE, if they had material misstatement, it means the initial information that was reported was misleading. Yes, so it means it either means that the information that was initially reported was overstated or understated, or just not agreeing with what is sitting in the supporting documents. And it always have to agree with what is sitting in the supporting documents. So that is the understanding of what it means. And then you ask if there is a methodology that we use to measure impact. There is currently no methodology per se, but we all as role players have to, with the understanding of the mandate, if we can see that the targets that are being prioritized are focusing on the key mandate or influencing it, even if the implementation is happening at a lower level, or monitoring the implementation of the mandate, then we will be closer to addressing the lived experiences of the citizens. This question also kept on coming in, I think also from Honorable Jauke, where she was asking, how do we measure impact? And I just want to give maybe a possible way in which impact can be measured. So each department will have programs, and each entity that we audit will have programs They will have the first program, which is usually admin, where the salaries and everything is paid through admin. Then they will have other specific programs that are talking to the core functions of that department. And then there's usually an allocation that is allocated to each program. So how one can measure the impact is to follow the name of the program, what is sitting under that program in terms of the indicators and the targets that the department or the entity is saying they are going to do to achieve the core function of the mandate. And then tracing it to the financial statement to see whether all the money that was placed on that program have been spent. And if all of it has been spent, what are the results in terms of the achievement of targets? So if you go back to that slide that I showed, which was showing that the department, there's 23% of the targets which were not achieved, you then follow it per program to say if there's a program for youth development or women empowerment, and all the money that was allocated there was spent, what does it translate to? Were all the targets that were put under that program achieved? If it was, then that's how we can start to question whether there is impact on the ground on the spending. And then there were other references that Honorable Chauke has made to NYDA, which I would like to ask Honorable Chairperson that we peg those issues, because currently we are not reporting on NYDA because the audit is still underway. So we can come back once we have finalized the audit, we have issued the audit report, and then we'll unpack and then we'll clarify. And you can also be empowered to ask NYDA other specific questions. So I just want to propose that that's how we should deal with the other questions that Honorable Chauke has asked in relation to NYDA. And then the questions from Honorable Kanyile on how much was paid for the new system. I will ask my team to, if they are able to confirm that without going into the audit itself, to just respond to that specific question. If we are not able to respond to it, we can come back once we have signed off on that. But then the other questions, I will ask Mashudu and Tabo to come in and just clarify. There was a question on whether we audit the CARA funds. If Tabo and Mashudu can just close that for us. There was also a question on what the 900,000 contract on the department, which is under assessment, what it relates to. Can I ask Mashudu and Tabo just to come in and clarify that? And any other questions that are not related to, that are not directed to the department that we need to respond to. Mashudu and Tabo, if you can switch on your videos as you come in, thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. Through you, Chair, if I may take the other remaining questions. I think the other question which I will take was mainly on the donor funds, which was on the CARA funds. Yes, honorable members, I can confirm that we have audited the spending of the donor funds, especially on the department, and we have also audited them in terms of to ensure that the spending complies with the conditions of the grant. And what we can confirm is that we didn't pick up any issues with regard to the department spending those funds in terms of the conditions of the funds. So with regard to contract under assessment, the 924, so this contract, it was a contractor or a service provider who was being contracted to provide or to conduct a repaid impact or assessment evaluation on the government's policy. So it was just more on the research on the government's policy. So the issue there which we have picked up is just as Dinzwalo did articulate, to said, when it comes to the evaluation, so there was a bit of inconsistency which we picked up on the evaluation, which the management have thus elevated it to National Treasury to ensure that we are in line or to confirm that the non-compliance indeed is a non-compliance. So, and then also on the amount that has been spent to date on the new system at NYDA, at this point in time, we don't have accurate figure. Honorable Chairperson, I think after the audit, we can come up with the actual figure of the amount that has been spent to date on the different components within the system. So on the other one, which was asked by Honorable Chair, it was on the performance of the commissioners as to whether we can be able to conduct some work around the timesheet and the work which is being done by the commissioners. Yes, I can confirm that, Honorable Chair. As part of our audit process, we do look into timesheets, and then there's also when we request the supporting documents. Timesheets are one of the key mandatory supporting documents which we do look at. So yes, we can assist the portfolio committee when it comes to the performance of the commissioners. I don't know, Tabo, if there's something that I have missed. Maybe you can add.
Okay, so I don't see Tabo, but there was also a question from the portfolio committee. Okay, I'll hand over to you, Tabo, just now. There was also a question on what can be done to assist the CGE, maybe from the portfolio committee. I think that came from Honorable Kanyile and also from the chairperson. So I suppose maybe one of the things that can be looked at is just to interrogate how the structure of CGE in terms of capacity is structured, to assess whether they have the relevant capacity to deal with, for example, the investigations, and whether the current capacity that they have is being used effectively. So for example, to assess whether is there an SCM unit, whether that SCM unit is capacitated, just check what sits in the finance unit, if there are any gaps there that maybe needs to be considered, so that these can be used to really assist the commission to be able to deal with some of the challenges they have. Perhaps also, an interaction or an engagement with the audit committee, because they oversee the performance in terms of financial reporting and performance reporting of the commission. Perhaps a conversation with also how they have assessed and what they see or are observing could be weaknesses in terms of the structure that enable the institutional disciplines to be able to report on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, reconcile, review, identify things, and deal with things as they come and as they arise. So maybe that is one thing that I can suggest that maybe the committee can look at. How about if there's one or two things that we did not speak to, perhaps on the system question of NYDA, if you are able to respond to that, that will be appreciated. Thabo?
Good morning, committee, chairperson, honorable chairperson, as well as honorable members on the call. Thank you so much, Dinzwalo. So on the system spending on NYDA, I think it would have been a project that involved a lot of modules including some of the modules touching on performance, information, and others. So finance is one of those modules. I think finance is where then there were issues that resulted in a qualification in the prior year, and it's largely the item that would have also resulted would have caused the delay in submission of the financial statements. In total, there is about more than 30 million that was spent on that, but as Mashudu has reflected, we'd have to just go back and allocate and get the figure that would have been allocated to the finance module. I think that accurate information will be presented to yourselves with your request, Chairperson. But of course, we also are deliberating on some of these matters. I think we've been having meetings with management touching specifically on the system issues, and we are currently engaging with management regarding those matters. There's just one other question I thought I just wanted to reflect on regarding the controls that can be put in place across the portfolio to ensure that the Department of Women maintains its clean audit and CGE improves. So we've reflected in one slide on those internal controls. It's mainly the day-to-day as well as monthly and quarterly reporting reflection on AOPO. And of course, the same with the Department of Women as well. I think those are critical to ensure that at least for financial performance, we have accurate reporting. And then, of course, regarding the consequence management, our colleagues have provided a recommendation. Thank you so much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Thabo. And then we will then hand over back to you, Honorable Chairperson. We have responded to the questions that were directed to the Auditor General. I think the other questions, especially the 10 questions from Honorable Mabel, will need to be responded to by the department and CGE. Thank you so much.
Ma'am, I didn't hear, did we answer around the 900,000? Did we get an indication?
Yes, Mashudu spoke to that. But maybe okay. Mashudu can come in and just repeat so that the chairperson captures our response. Thank you.
Okay,
my apologies. My apologies.
Okay. Thanks, Chairperson. So the 900,000 relates to a contract for a service provider who was specifically going to do more like an evaluation and research for the department. So the issues that we picked up from our side was just mainly on the inconsistency when it comes to the evaluations of the bid. So there was like a mandatory requirement to say they need to submit the history of the research that they have conducted previously. So which it was a mandatory requirement where it actually even indicated that failure to submit that, then it will be like an automatic disqualification, which one of the service provider who managed to go through what we have observed is that did not submit that research. So that is where we indicated like the non-compliance arises from. So which when we engage with the management, yes, management have got a different view on that. And that is why the matter has now been escalated with National Treasury to make sure that that matter gets resolved. So I think, Chair, also the other questions I think that we have omitted that you asked, I think it was with relates to the findings which we raised on the performance report for the department. So the finding was relating mostly on the completeness of the reports. So the reports, when we requested information for audit, so what we picked up that the department have actually achieved more than what they have reported on that specific indicator. So meaning not all targets which were achieved were included in the performance report. So that finding was mainly coming from that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, can I just see before we let the Office of the Auditor General go, if there are any further questions from honourable members? Remember that we are going to be meeting next week. We're starting with the CGE on Tuesday, and on Friday we will have an opportunity to meet with our department about their annual reports. And so the questions that you still need answers to, you will be able to pose in those two meetings. But if there's anything specific left that you would like to take to ask the AG, I will see if you've got any further questions, honourable members.
Chair.
Honourable Polwane.
Yes, Chair, the implementation of consequence management. I think it's the only one that I'm worried.
Okay. So the question then, AG, what more can be done to ensure that consequence management takes place, in essence? Mr. Swin.
All right. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. So I think the department, let's start with the department. So with regards to the department, the portfolio committee has powers to hold the minister and the department accountable. So I think it will be an opportune time to ask from the minister, what is it that the minister is doing from her oversight role to ensure that there is fast tracking of consequence management, and that the issues that have been pending finalization from the investigations that have been done, that the accounting officer is able to finalize those. So the portfolio committee has powers to ask for, and influence through the role of holding the minister accountable, so that the minister can also make sure that she's providing oversight and she's holding the department accountable to fast track that. On the side of CGE, I think we have already, over and above the recommendation that we have made to the portfolio committee, seeing that CGE report to Parliament directly, it will be to also ask from the accounting authority of CGE, what steps are they taking? But we have, since all of us agreed that perhaps just asking what steps are they taking is not sufficient. Hence, we are making a recommendation to say, perhaps there should be a relook where the CGE is moving away from just relying on internal audit, because when you look at the number of instances and the average time it takes for internal audit to investigate those issues, we will still sit with no consequence management. So perhaps we need to follow it in an approach that is intended to help the CGE, which could be to review the structure and see if there are other capacities that can be leveraged upon to sort of assist CGE to deal with the investigations, and then to follow the instructions of PFMA. And so, insofar as consequence management is concerned, which is to write off instances or to condone or to recover from the people that may be found to have caused irregular expenditure. I think those are the items that we can really put on the table as recommendations of the way forward in which this portfolio committee can try and implement and influence.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. I see the last hand of the Honourable Chauke Adonis.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Also just appreciating the responses that we have received to the questions that have been put forward. Chairperson, perhaps maybe this might be overreach or outside of the scope of the AG currently in terms of their reporting. I'm not sure if they're able to give us an analysis of what their findings have been on special needs schools, children who are outside of basic education. I don't know if that's within their scope. And then the second question I would like to ask is that what has been the interaction and engagement with National Treasury in terms of the budget allocation to this particular department, taking into consideration that the portfolio committee
has made several recommendations for the budget to be increased, and whether the AG in their finding perhaps find that the budget allocation to the department and its entities is sufficient in order for them, for the department to execute their mandate. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much. Let's hand back over to the AG. I know that the Auditor General has done a investigation or a report into the exclusion of learners with disabilities from the education system. And we are planning to invite you back at some stage to come and give us that briefing. But over to you to just answer those questions before we round up the discussion this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Honorable Chairperson. I think, yeah. So there is the special report which has been done, which once we are invited, we will come back and share on that. But in terms of giving an analysis of the breakdown, I think the Portfolio Committee for Basic Education is more directly positioned to ask from the auditors that are auditing basic education. So we audit from the Department of Women. However, when we receive the invite, I think we can come back with those auditors as well, so that we are able to provide to the members all the information that is required on that regard. And then with regards to the budget, yeah, I think Honorable Chauke, it will be overreaching on our side to involve ourselves on the determination of whether or not the budget that is allocated to the department is small or enough. Yeah, it is not within our space. And for us to be able to maintain our independence, we have to stay away from the decision making of how much gets allocated to which department. So for those reasons, we would not have done any work to assess whether the budget that is allocated to the Department of Women is sufficient or it is not sufficient, or even had conversation with National Treasury. We did not, because that will be overstepping on our side, and maybe just what is the word, threatening our independence in terms of yeah, so we can't be involved in the allocation of funds and then come back and audit. It may tamper with our independence. I hope I have responded. Thank you.
Thank you very much to the Office of the Auditor General, and thank you very much for the work that you continue to do in support of Parliament, of our Portfolio Committee, and our democracy at large. We will definitely be inviting you back to give us that special report on learners with disabilities that are excluded from the education system. We will, of course, also have you back when you have finally completed the NYDA audit. And thank you very much for the recommendations that you've tabled to us today. We will definitely be raising the various issues with our department and the CGE when we meet with them next week. But we also take on board the injunction or the recommendation that we also have to do more as a portfolio committee to hold to account our department, the CGE and the NYDA. So thank you very much again to you, Office of the Auditor General. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to meeting with you again later and in November. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks so much. Colleagues, please do stay online. We're going to be saying goodbye to the AG, but we just quickly want to take you through the fourth term program so that you are aware of our very busy schedule that we've got for this fourth term. Welcome to the Honourable Shabango that has joined us. I also see Honourable Tito from the EFF. Mr. Dumiswamini, please take us through our fourth term draft program so that we can get the inputs of honourable members. And I really do want to make the point, honourable members, that we have got a lot of work to do in this fourth term. So I would really like to appeal to all of us to attend all meetings and to give our fullest support to the work of this committee that have been tasked with appointing new commissioner or identifying new commissioners to serve on the CGE. We have to go through the process of the appointment of candidates for the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide, and we have to lead the statutory rape inquiry, all in this fourth term. So you will see we'll have a very busy program. But please do take us through, Mr. Dumizweni. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thanks so much. May you please scroll down, Yolanda? Yes, Chair, as we can see, in front of us, there's a 7th, which was today's meeting. We are done with it. Then on Friday, this coming Friday, that is the 14th. No, I'm sorry, Tuesday next week, I'm sorry. We're going to be meeting the CGE. That is going to be briefed by the CGE and its Audit and Risk Committee on its annual reports 2024-2025. Then on Friday between 9 and 5, we're going to be hosting the department, which will also be briefing us on the 2024-2025 annual report. That also includes the briefing by the Audit and Risk Committee of the department. The meeting will be virtual, and also the one of the 14th will be virtual. Then on the 21st, that is on Tuesday, the committee will be briefed by the Constitution and Legal Services Office on the what will be briefed by the Legal Services Office on the constitutional judgment, the recently delivered constitutional judgment pertaining to the CGE issues. Then the committee will also get an opportunity on the 21 to also consider the advertisement and the program for the appointment of the members to serve in the CGE board. As you know that the Concord found that the latest appointment of the current board of the CGE was invalid. Therefore, we've been given a responsibility to also restart the process by advertising and carry on with the entire process until the appointment stage. The meeting will be physical, it will be in Parliament, then the venue will be communicated in due course. Then on the 28th of October, Chair, we'll be adopting the BRRR report, and we'll also be dealing with constituency matters. That is the matters that will be brought. The committee will be looking at the constitutional matters that are referred to the committee, where they're coming with members and all that stuff. And then we'll also be dealing with the preparations for the statutory rape committee. There is that referral of a statutory rape to the committee, of which the committee is intending to deal with that in two folds or in two legs. One will be meeting in Joburg according to the plans on Saturday. I believe the date will be the 31st of October, if my memory serves me well. We'll be in Joburg, so we'll be prepared. The briefing will also be about that. Then another thing, on Friday, the 31st of October, the committee will be attending. It has been invited by the Minister of Women to attend the G20 Women Empowerment Working Group. It will be in Joburg. So these issues, as we have already sent out the SMSs to members, requesting them to indicate their logistics, in fact, of the traveling arrangements and everything. So we'll be attending that G20 Empowerment Working Group in Gauteng. As I've already stated, that we are being invited by the department. Then on Saturday, as I've already indicated above, that we'll be meeting the stakeholders, which are still to be identified by the committee, and the secretariat will communicate in due course in terms of the stakeholders that will be identified. There's a list, but it's just that it has to be confirmed. So we'll be working in Joburg on that Saturday. The aim is to meet various stakeholders. So the venue and like I said, the identified stakeholders will be communicated. This is based on the referral that was sent to the committee to deal with the statutory rape issues. So on the 2nd, that is the 2nd of November, we'll be leaving Joburg for East London to also continue with our statutory rape work. And again, the stakeholders that will be dealing with in East London will be communicated in due course with the committee. Then on the 3rd, we'll be meeting the stakeholders, as I've already indicated. Then the plan is that on the 4th, we will be meeting, visiting the NYDA and CGE. Then if there's any change in terms of extending the stakeholder engagement in relation to the statutory rape that will be communicated. Then on the 10th, 11th, and 12th, we'll be dealing with the statutory rape in Parliament. That will be engaging stakeholders. This is a joint committee. Committee will be working in jointly. It's going to be 6 committees. It's going to be us, PC on health, PC on basic education, PC on social development, PC on justice, and PC on police. So they will be meeting in those 3 days in Parliament to deal with the issue of the statutory rape. Then on the 18th of July, we have already advertised for members of the civil society and private sector to apply for the National Commission, National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. The advert is out. We're doing some touch-ups now. So the target is that by the 18th, we will be shortlisting all those candidates who would have been applied for this. Then on the 25th, we're going to be considering and adopting the report on the statutory rape inquiry, and will also be briefed by the department on the 16 days of action and implementation of the NSP. We'll also be considering the minutes. Then on the 28th of November, we'll be briefed by the NYDA, as it has already been stated that they couldn't submit their annual reports. Then the meeting will be held on the 28th. It will be on Friday, and it's going to be virtual. Then on the 2nd of December, we'll be meeting the department on the progress made on the implementation. Can you scroll down, please? Okay, fine, but Chair, on the 2nd, can you please try Canelan? We'll be meeting the department. Yes, regarding the progress on the implementation of the white paper of persons with disabilities. We'll also be considering the minutes. So we'll invite the legal office and other members to brief to be with us on that day, because we'll be having the department. Then on the 9th, which I believe is going to be our last meeting, we'll get the feedback on constituency matters, also considering the minutes. Then it's going to be the constituency period until we meet next year. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dumizweni. Colleagues, so you will see, before I hand over to Ms. Abrams just to talk to us about the plans for the statutory rape inquiry, you will see that this program incorporates what we discussed at the Strat plan, which is to have a constituency day where we come with issues from our constituency, issues that we want to be addressed. And so we've made provision for that in the program, provision to deal with the adoption of the advertisement for the CGE. We are, of course, going to be shortlisting the candidates for the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. We are also dealing with GBV issues at the start of the 16 Days of Activism campaign, and we're dealing with Disability Rights Matters the day before the International Day of Persons with Disabilities. Then the statutory rape inquiry, where it previously would have taken the form of just a hearing at Parliament, it will now have 2 legs. In other words, we will start with an on-the-ground investigation. We know that statutory rape and teenage pregnancies are at crisis levels in Gauteng and in the Eastern Cape. And so our committee would be embarking on the on-the-ground investigation in the Eastern Cape, where we'll be visiting a hospital, we'll be engaging with stakeholders, we'll engage traditional leaders, go to the CGE, NYDA, and in Gauteng we'll be engaging with stakeholders as well. But I will ask Ms. Abrams to talk to us about that. And then when we come back to Parliament, having done that initial work, we will then have the parliamentary inquiry, which will be divided into 3 days. The Monday will be our day. We will give a morning slot to our colleagues in the justice cluster, in other words, police and justice. The afternoon of the Tuesday to the social services cluster, in other words, to the social services, social development portfolio committee and health. And we will end off the parliamentary inquiry on the Wednesday morning with a morning session, which will be chaired by the portfolio committee of education. So a lot of thought and planning has gone into this, but we thought that we needed to sensitize you to the fact that there will be lots of Friday work, there'll be lots of work over weekends for us to be able to make this plan work. But let me quickly hand over to Ms. Abrams to give us just an idea about the stakeholders that we'll be inviting for the statutory rape inquiry, and then I'll take the hands of honourable members. Ms. Abrams.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good afternoon to the members, colleagues, and all guests on the platform. As Mvaba's indicated, for Saturday, the 1st of November, when we're in Johannesburg, for the morning session, we've secured Teddy Bear Clinic, Ms. Shaida Omar, Johannesburg Child Welfare, Mr. A. Hattis. We'll also include Childline, and then Johannesburg Parent and Child Counselling Centre. So that would be some of the NGOs in the morning. There was also a suggestion to include Councillor Jawairia Smith from Eldorado Park, given the concerns that had emanated there around cases, and the suggestion as well as to invite the MECs for social development, health and basic education for Gauteng, as we'd be in the province looking, and it would have bearing on the matters related to the statutory referral on statutory rape. In terms of the Monday in East London, the intention again is to visit a hospital. I've checked, so East London, in terms of rape and crimes, falls under the top 30 police stations. The suggestion was also that as we've met with Childline and Child Welfare in Johannesburg, we do the same in East London, but also meet up with Masimanyani. We've worked with Masimanyani in the past. They're an NGO that don't just render services in East London, but through a huge part of the Eastern Cape. There was also a strong suggestion that we include an engagement for the Monday afternoon with traditional leaders, as they play a key role as we look at these matters pertaining to statutory rape. And given that the Commission for Gender Equality has done work with traditional leaders in the Eastern Cape, the intention is to work with the CGE to help coordinate and facilitate our engagement on that Monday afternoon with traditional leaders. And then for the Tuesday morning, besides the visit to CGE and NYDA offices, there was also a suggestion engaging with the stakeholders that we perhaps visit the Mary Stopes. So they deal with a range of sexual reproductive health matters, and they would provide some insights as they have direct services to young girls. Chairperson, that covers our first leg, which is on the ground. I'll just take members just to highlight what the Chair said around Monday, the 10th of November, the 11th and the 12th. And that's our session in Cape Town. Some of the NGOs we would include would be the Zero Dropout Campaign, Equal Education, Section 27, Shukumisa, as well as the South African National Child Rights Coalition. In terms of academia, it would be between the MRC and HSRC, and then multilaterals like UNICEF and Save the Children. They've also done work in this area. And then around institutions supporting democracy, there would be the CGE, Public Protector, Human Rights Commission, as well as the Children's Commission, because there's one in the Western Cape. For day 2, which is the Tuesday, as Chair has noted, we have police in the morning and justice. For police, they would cover FCS units, IPID, and Civilian Secretariat of Police. We had also suggested that perhaps to include unions like Pop Crew. For justice, it would be justice and the NPA. For the afternoon, which is social development and health, also the inclusion of the South African Council for Social Service Professions, and for the Department of Health to include unions possibly like NIHAO and the South African Health Professional Council. And then on the last day, as Chair has noted, it would be Department of Education, but also to include the Council, which is the South African Council for Educators, and the possible unions would be SATU and APTOSA. And then it would be, because we are coordinating committee, we should also offer a slot to the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, and maybe they specifically talk to us in relation to the NSP and the prevention strategy as it relates to matters concerning statutory rape. So, Chair, that covers our Johannesburg is London leg, as well as Cape Town for Monday, the 10th of November, Tuesday, the 11th, and Wednesday, the 12th. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Abrams. Can I see if anybody would like to give any inputs to our program? And if not, if I can ask a honourable member to move for the adoption and a seconder. Or would colleagues one more time to look at? Yes, Honourable Chauke Adonis.
Apologies, I'm unable to raise my hand. I would like to move for the adoption of the agenda, but also make a recommendation that as we, when we conduct our oversight, can we please prioritize and ensure that the premiers, the MECs, the MMCs must be present and must participate, especially with the stakeholder engagements. But with that, I then adopt the agenda, the program for fourth term. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chauke Adonis. I see the hand of Honourable Peterson.
Thank you, Chair. I second the adoption.
Okay. Colleagues, thank you very much for attending today's meeting. It was an important briefing. It also arms you with the right information for our 2 meetings next week. We will be circulating this final adopted program again on our group. Members, you do have the advertisement that has been circulated, the advertisement for the National Council on Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. It has also been posted on parliamentary media channels, and you will also be able to access it there, but we'll also share the link. Colleagues, that then brings us to the end of this meeting. We will see you again next Tuesday. Have a good week. May you be blessed, work hard, and we will see each other next week, Tuesday. Thank you so much, colleagues.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Long live the Chair.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you.
Bye.